We have a little time now in between, so we decided to put together something for you that I think would be really valuable. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how things change in our careers and in our lives. And I have two amazing people here. You just met Alison. She was up on the stage. And Jann. They are both CMOs that have recently left their positions and are trying to figure out what's next. All of you guys, if you haven't experienced it yet, I promise you will experience this at some time in your career. I've reinvented myself 4 or 5 times. I'm an old guy now. I'm 66 years old. When anybody asks me to do a new thing, I say, I'm done reinventing myself. I got to ride this wave into shore because I'm just too tired to paddle out again. But most of you guys, that's not going to be the case because that's going to be different going forward. Let's welcome Jann and Alison on stage. Please give them a warm welcome. Now, understand we're doing this on the fly. So they're not prepared for this at all. Nope. As a matter of fact, I just whispered in Alison's ear and asked her to join us. And I also want you guys to participate if you have questions or there's anything that interests you. But, you know, we all start out. We come out of school. We get our first job. We think everything is going to proceed in a very orderly fashion. What you're going to find is as you move up the ladder, jobs get harder and harder to find. Yes, some of us are recruited from one job to the next. Life is beautiful and everything's easy, but it's not the way it is for most. What happens is you change ideas, you get different passions, you follow a different route, something ends, you got to find something new. And when I write about Return on Relationship, it's about personal relationships and business, in that build relationships along the way. I like to say that relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. I live by a mantra of be good to people. Because if you're good to people, they're going to be good back to you. Be good to do things for others without expectation of anything directly in turn. You guys all know David Teicher. He just happened to write a post about that on LinkedIn that I commented on, shared. So what I'd like to do is give Jann and Alison an opportunity to first tell you that, you know, a little bit something about their transition. And Alison, I just, as coincidence, we were talking about this yesterday, like, what do you want to do next? Like, do I want to work for a startup? Do I want to stay in corporate? Do I want to do something that I'm passionate about? You know, am I a parent, and is that more important to me now? So let Alison go first. She was just on stage, so she's kind of warmed up, and then we'll head over to Jann.
Yeah, it's a hard question when people ask you, what are you looking for? Because I think very few of us have that really narrow idea. And it's more like, I'm looking for a feeling. But, you know, I know what I love to do. And I think, you know, at this point, I love the type of marketing I do. I love that we are constantly moving the end line. You know, our job is never done. We're constantly improving and iterating and making things better every single day. And I kind of, that competitive spirit in me really loves that aspect of the marketing that I do, that to see the metrics go up or down. And when they go down, it's like looking and trying to understand why, like what is going on, and keep on learning. It's this kind of like curiosity, this insane, like innate curiosity and to the ability to learn. And that's the stuff I love about the marketing that we do. But, you know, I've worked in big companies and small companies, and they both have their merits. But I think that, and I could work in both again, and I'm open to both, but I think the thread at this point in my life, because things do change as you get older, it really becomes about the relationships and who are the people that you are working with and how well do you jive together? Are you on the path together? Because if you're not on the same path, the jobs not only become a lot harder, they just become a lot less enjoyable.
And what a lot of us fail to do is look at who we're going to work for. Like, it's a big corporation. What's the culture? What's their mindset? Totally. I know you work for a company that got acquired by a larger company. So now all of a sudden that changes. Jann worked for a company that's owned by a private equity firm. We just had an interesting conversation about that because the startup that I was a partner in called Collective Bias, which was an early company in the influencer space, we had private equity come in and everything changed. Because private equity is different than corporate, is different than VC. It's a different way things are run. So Jann, I'd love your input here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Francesca's largely because I didn't have on my resume that private equity experience, and I wanted a piece of that. So what I'll say is I started my career, and it was crystal clear what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to work in marketing, I wanted to work in fashion, and I wanted to do it in New York. And early in your career, you have a world of opportunity in front of you. There are, lots of different opportunities to kind of flex different muscles and see what actually ultimately fits for you. But as you begin to progress, that field becomes smaller and smaller. Another really interesting thing happens, that Alison kind of touched on this too, is that the field becomes smaller, but what you expect from the job also becomes much more finite. Mm-hmm. You know what you want from people, you know where you are, where your skills are best served. And it puts you in this interesting position of like a little bit of like, well, all these years things have come to me. And so now it's my turn to go out and find them. And that can be scary, but it's also super exciting. And I think as marketers overall, when I think of people I've met, this past couple of days, and then over my time with brand innovators in general, is that we're inherent risk takers. And I think that serves us well in that way.
It absolutely does. And I think as you become more sure of yourself, and when you hear about something, you have that confidence to say, hey, this is not right for me. And you don't have to chase every single opportunity, and really know who you are and what's going to work for not only like your skill set and the things that you think you succeed in, but what's going to make you happy. Because really, for me, at the end of the day, like I'm a mom now. It doesn't matter if you're a mom or not a mom, like doesn't a parent or whatever you're passionate about, your job should be you should be happy enough to be able, in your role, to fulfill those passions and to follow them and to create that balance between work and your passions and finding that. And for me, I try to make sure that my team can get that, but that's what I'm also looking for.
And learning is, John McMenamin and I were just talking about this. Again, we're two old guys, and things have changed. They really are. The pace of change now is so much faster that when we first got into the business world, we were doing the same thing for 20 years. Learning every day just wasn't as critical. And I'm not saying it wasn't a good thing then, it was, but you didn't necessarily have to always be educating yourself. During COVID, one of the things I took advantage of is friends were trying to convince me forever to start using Audible instead of reading, because you can just absorb so much more content. And I'm losing something. Depending on who you are, like I work out a lot and I'm outside a lot and I'm moving around a lot, and using Audible allowed me to continually be learning. Okay. And you guys now, that's not an option. The pace of change is so dramatic. I mean, just think about this. This past year, last year, 2022, 2023 at CES was all about, and CES, South by Southwest was all about Web3, NFTs, crypto. I mean, you guys all had to educate yourself on that. I had to educate myself on that. All of a sudden, it's kind of forgotten. It's good that you have that knowledge because it's not gone forever, okay? Just like QR codes. At one point were dead. Now they're all the rage and they're being effectively used. And part of that, again, was COVID and a rethinking of it. But AI now is all the rage. And as we heard yesterday when we were listening to some of the panels, AI is not really new. AI has been around for a long time. The consumer side of AI is new. The way you can see it, the way we as consumers or as workers can employ it every day. And for the most part, really, that's just ChatGPT and the other things like it. We're not really experiencing the true AI that's figuring out things we don't know about. So I just like to hit a little bit on, you guys have been through your career. Now you're a little bit later. You've experienced this change where you didn't have to learn so much. You guys are both looking for what's next. How much of that time are you spending educating yourself on new technologies, new ideas, new ways of looking at the consumer, et cetera?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Playing around, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of one of the coolest parts of this. So one of the things that I did when I, even just prior to Francesca's, but largely during COVID, born out of boredom, started a company with my daughter. And what was really fun about that is a health and wellness company. I can tell you all about that later. But the really cool part of that was the education piece that came along with it. Because it's one thing to sit in a C-suite and have a huge team and resources available to you. It's another to do it yourself. And I've really enjoyed that aspect. And then the The other piece too is I totally agree on the Audible thing. I've just recently discovered that myself. Like I always wanted the book, but I appreciate
how much can you consume, right? I mean,
bonkers.
especially if it's business books. Like if you're reading a novel, you really have to adjust to Audible because, you know, if you miss something, you're like, wait, how did that guy get in that room? What happened? Whereas business books or informational books, your brain is absorbing a lot more than you realize when you're just listening to it, even if you get sidetracked. So Audible's amazing, right? I mean,
it's a wonderful resource. If you don't have a subscription, I highly recommend. I would say the other thing too is there is a little piece of ego that comes with this change, right? Like something you kind of have to face about yourself and about like what next is going to look like. And in that ego comes a little bit of insecurity about coming to things like this. And let me tell you, the best part about these things is something Todd Adest said earlier, I think he may have left, is that we're all human. And marketers, because we inherently study the human, really can relate to one another in a really interesting way. And it creates a second set of community that kind of helps you through this transition that you can call upon as you need it. And then as others need it too, you're there to be called upon.
And then another thing I can't stress enough, and it's getting harder now because a lot of you guys aren't in offices. Somebody gets let go from your company, you don't even know. There's no desk that's been cleared out. There's no going away party. There's no, hey, we're all here for you. Let's see what you need next. All of a sudden, they're just not on the next Zoom or they're not on an email string. So build relationships, guys. And I'm telling you, the value that's here is so important because when you build up relationship currency, do for people. Don't worry about if they give you something back. I can't tell you how often I say to people, you know, let me know how I can support you. And right away the mindset goes is they think I do consulting. They think I'm asking them for a job. I'm not. I'm saying, let me know how I can support you. I've got a huge LinkedIn network. I know probably 60% of the marketers in this country in some way, or if I reach out to them, the odds are if I'm not connected to them, they will probably respond to me because of all the content I've created over the years and the way my name's been out there, and being on this stage for 6 years didn't hurt that either. But I'm just saying, let me connect you with somebody or get on the phone with me. We were just talking, I said, call me. Let's talk through this thing. Or reach out to me if you want me to share some content. I have a very big audience. I can help syndicate content. But do those things for others because what you're doing is you're building relationship capital. And I'm sure there are people out here, you're rolling your eyes at me, you're thinking this isn't important to me. I got a lot of friends, I don't need more. You do. Life's hard. Things change. There are ups and downs every day. Don't overlook that. I just had lunch with, oh my God, he was on the stage yesterday from L'Oreal. What? No, Nobles. Sorry, again, too much. I used to think it was because I was getting old, but let's be true. We all have too much incoming information, so it's hard to remember everything. But I met Nobles here yesterday. For just a couple of moments, we commented. Then I saw him at dinner last night, and he said, hey, man, I'd love to talk to you more. Let's have lunch tomorrow. I met him today for lunch. And somebody said to me, well, let me ask you a question. What's the purpose of you going to lunch with Nobles? I mean, you don't really do work for brands. You work mostly with B2B companies. I'm like, it's just somebody that, it's a relationship. It's a guy that's going to move up in his career. It's somebody whose life I can affect. It's one more person that gets to know me better and I can reach out to later. So seriously, try to do that. You see me wearing this hat. It's not Rubin. So no, I'm not promoting my own name on my hat. This is from a guy that I met via social media 12 years ago, finally met in person in South by Southwest last year, who does something, he calls it the ripple effect. And he said, every action creates a ripple effect. Okay, you know how when you throw a stone into the water and then the ripples come out. So start a ripple, make a difference. Every action you take affects somebody. I wear Be Good to People stuff. I will not get on a plane without either one of my Be Good to People shirts, a Be Good to People hat, or one of my buttons, which is on my thing here. Why? Because it's changed my travel life. People treat you differently with what you put out. Flight attendants are incredibly nice to me. Now, truth be told, they see this and they go, this guy must be nice, because imagine what a dick he'd be if he was not nice and he's wearing a shirt like this.
Literal false advertising.
Right. Yeah. But it's also a reminder to me because, look, I'm a New Yorker at heart. I live in Florida now. Yes, I made that abandonment and went south. But for me, I can jump when someone says something nasty to me or does something, or there's somebody clipping their toenails on the plane, and you're like, seriously, dude? But I look down and I say something nice, or someone's talking on their phone on the plane into their speaker or listening to a movie without headphones, so I carry extra headphones now. And instead of saying, hey, you're bothering me, buddy, I say, you must have forgotten your headphones. Let me give you these. You know, you guys have all seen a flight attendant. There's 2 ways to handle somebody. Someone's trying, you know that guy who's banging his bag trying to get it into the overhead even though you know it's never going to fit? Well, there's one way to do this, 2 ways to do this. One flight attendant goes over and goes, sir, you can't do that. Starts taking his bag away. He gets pissed off, it escalates. Then you get the really good flight attendant who understands people and says, oh, sir, let me help you with that. She moves it around a little bit, says, doesn't look like it's gonna fit. Let me store this for you. Let me see if I can get it checked. And usually that will bring that whole situation into a much more comfortable situation. So I just want you guys to think about that more. And I'd love for you guys to ask these guys questions because you got them now. And here you go. Please, John, you want to get her a mic? And guys, do me a favor. If you wouldn't mind when you ask a question, stand up, tell us your name and your company.
Sure. Hi, I'm Stephanie with Kenview. First, I want to thank you for putting this impromptu thing together. I think it's a subject that affects a lot of people and is really important, and it's not talked about enough. So I really appreciate you kind of stepping outside of the norm and discussing something like this. You talked about ego in this type of transition. What's your advice for drowning out the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome? And not just in career, but I'm a mom, so I constantly have the mom guilt and, you know, never enough time. What's your advice for, you know, young people with families trying to balance and going through any type of transition, ones that are given to them against their will and ones that somewhat like me, I'm at a point in my life where, you know, I have a family and it's really important for me, and all of a sudden the balance of wanting to be there more for my family and less in my career is teetering a certain way. So what is your advice for people in this?
It's a funny thing, I think, one, parenthood, but transition in general is, there's a lot to wrap your head around in that moment. And I would say I knew when I had left the company that I had to take a few minutes. And because I was just mired, quite frankly, in self-doubt. Like all these things had come my way, all these things had been so great. And suddenly I'm like, what am I going to do next? And taking that deep breath and then recognizing that I had accomplished a lot and recognizing the benefits that I see in myself, but then also really relying on some of the people that I love. I think one thing that's super interesting about being an executive woman or an executive parent is that you do have this really split infinitive, if you will. Like, how are you going to use your motion and what direction and how do you apply it? And that's never fully going to go away, but that's why you have the people around you and how you create a support network, whether it's professionally or personally, you know, family, loved ones, friends. And when you invest in your relationships, they're there for you in the same way you'll be there for them. And I think that's been my biggest takeaway of these past few months is even like, you know, for coming here, like, you know, sending Vito a note and asking if I could join and getting a yes, that's because we've invested in those relationships. One other thing too, I would say, I don't know how old your kids are. I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. You have children
9.
as well? 9. Yeah. And
A 9-year-old, not 9 kids.
Gosh, so you're a superwoman, man.
Yes.
No, so having kids and you're looking at them and you know what they need from you. And you're probably also a fairly type A person who works really hard and wants to do both those things exceedingly well. And there are going to be pockets of time where you just can't. There was a moment when I had kids that were young where I left my wallet in a taxi cab 3 times. And it was just purely because it was too much, like forgetting names, all that kind of stuff. So it really comes down to taking a hot second, take a deep breath, recognize where your strengths are, play to those, and let someone else help fill in on the things that you perceive as your weaknesses.
I couldn't agree more. And it's okay to say also like, hey, things aren't, I'm not so well right now. And being, and putting it out there. And I found that like saying things out loud helps so much and stop living in my head because it's never as worse. It's never as bad as you think it is. And when you put it out there and you're talking to folks, what you get back is usually so much positivity, so much love that it helps. You can't do it alone. The same way at work, you can't do it alone. We have teams around us. We have people supporting us. Every success of every person is built like rare. I mean, it's rarely one person alone. It's a million people supporting. It's the same same way personally, and you just need to put it out there and say say it like
and say it. Don't just write it or text it. Conversations are very, very different, especially if you're discussing things like this, because just the tenor of your voice, the emotions that you can share that you can't share via text or email. You know, a lot of us have just gotten so hung up on digital communication that, like, I take every up whenever I'm in my car, I make phone calls. I drive a lot. I like road trips, and I love them because I put out on social media, on LinkedIn, I'm going to be in my car for the next 6 hours. Anybody that wants to call. Here's my phone number. And
you did that with drinks. You were coming to New York. Who wants to come?
And I did a
and I love
meetup
that,
on Sunday night with my ex-business partner, and we do this with whatever city we go to. We're going to be here this night. Anybody that wants to come join us, and it gives you a chance to get that stuff out face to face. And another thing I'll tell you, because I'm at a different stage. My girls are 28 and 26. I'm a divorced dad. I will tell you, I spent a lot of time with them, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough. Don't push that aside. Don't think there's time. There's not. And do that for all. And I'm really being serious with you again. I'm giving you the perspective of looking back. The time that you didn't spend with people, you can never replace. So make time for that stuff. Find jobs that allow you to make time for that stuff. Find jobs where you like the people you work with, because there's nothing better
That's
than
the
working
best
with
piece of
people
advice,
who
I think,
become
of all of
friends.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. The other thing that I've been doing is, you know, when the job was ending, I can't control any of that stuff. What I can only control is the way I react to it. And so when I would get mad about certain things, or I'd get frustrated or look back, and I'm just like, I'm just going to be positive and kind and all that. And it just changed, like, the way I physically felt about certain things. And the other thing I've been doing is just committed to saying yes to things and trying new things and doing something differently, because I'm not going to get different results by living my same exact life. And actually, I met you about 2 months ago now, and it was one of those things where I was coming to Brand Innovators, and what am I going to do now? I am going to say hello to someone I don't know. I am going to sit down and strike up a conversation, which goes against some of my introvert tendencies. And I sat down next to you, and your shirt gave me the intro in. And I was like, is anyone sitting here? I really love your shirt. And then we just started having a conversation, and it just went from there. And you leave then that conversation feeling like you have ideas, feeling good. You just had a connection with somebody. But just say yes to things. I said yes to trying an oyster for the first time because I saw a video of Gary Vaynerchuk saying, like, I love making people try oysters because they think they don't like it. And I'm like, I know I don't like oysters, and guess what? I tried it and I hated it. But I tried it, and so now I know. But just saying yes to things, and every day just trying something new, whether it's learning something new, reading a new article, responding on LinkedIn, changing, doing something differently for different results, and changing yourself.
And to extend on that, first of all, I've given you some of the reason I wear this, but I wear a lot of T-shirts with messages. And part of that is it starts conversation. I wear my Ripple-On hat. I have a Ripple-On sticker out here on this shirt. Why? Let's Ripple. Because people come up and say, what's that about? One of the hardest things at one of these events is to walk up to people cold and have a reason for talking to them where they don't think you're just trying to sell them something, or maybe you're not good at small talk. I'm not. I seem like an extrovert. I'm not. I'm an introvert who pushes myself to be an extrovert, okay? And when I'm exhausted at the end of these things, because it takes a lot of energy to put out. But what I do is I have another shirt that says, yeah, absolutely. I have one that says no let up, because no let up is something I believe in. It's one of the things I champion. There's no let up in life. But people ask questions about those things. I post my socks on social media. Every time I travel, they're called Ted Sockies now. Someone named them that 10 years ago. They said, hashtag it. I post them on social media. Why? I walk into an event, people say, what socks are you wearing? Or they show me theirs. It makes conversation easier. It opens the door to people to feel good. And you made a comment before that hit home for me. You talked about imposter syndrome, okay? We all live with that. Anybody that tells you they don't have it in their life, it's full of shit. I was on this stage 75 times a year for 6 years. I've spoken all over the world. I've keynoted just about everywhere. And when they asked me to come up on the stage today, I'm like, oh shit, I haven't been on the stage for a while. Can I pull this off? you can and you will, but you, again, just like you said, try things. Jump in. Say yes. The first time I spoke, I was the CMO of Elf Cosmetics back in 2008, the first time I really got in front of an audience. And we had built this brand using social media with zero marketing budget. And I was asked to speak at one of the, I don't think it was Condé Nast, I think it was one of the others. And I finished speaking and thought, oh my God, that sucked. Like, how bad was that? The audience went crazy, and they came up and asked me to come back the next week and talk to the room of executives. And you just got to make yourself do it. When I get asked to speak about a new topic that I haven't done, I've just learned to say yes, because between now and when it happens, I'll figure it out. I'll get up on stage. If I screw it up, I'll learn from it.
Yeah, and we apply, as marketers, we apply that all the time. How many of our things do not work? And we learn. And we should do that personally as well, and it's okay.
I'm going to leave you guys with one more thing. Okay, and this is how I try to affect the world. So I'm a divorced dad, and I had to fight to keep my daughters in my life. A lot of people in the marketing world know about that because I've written about it a lot. I have a marketing blog, tedrubin.com. There's a divorced dad section on it. But when I first became divorced, I got stuck with what I call the divorced dad car. It's the convertible with seats way too close together in the back seat for two little girls. And whenever I'd be going anywhere, they'd be fighting. She's touching me, she's pinching me. My personal favorite is, she's smelling me, Daddy. And then my little one would snort at my older one. I mean, how do you deal with that? And it would kind of freak me out. So I thought, how can I fix this? I can't get rid of this car for a while. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? When I'm with my daughters and I'm in the park and they start fighting, I grab them by the hands and I skip. And they get happy, because you can only be happy when you're skipping. Try skipping. You can only smile. I guarantee it. So here's what I'm going to give you some advice. If you're having a bad day, if you want to influence somebody, whatever it is, get up from your desk, get up in an auditorium like this, get up at an event, and start skipping. Okay? Because I promise it'll make you happier, but if it doesn't, it'll make everybody else smile. And here's the other thing. If you can make everybody in your life, from friends to colleagues to vendors to people you work for, metaphorically skip when they're interacting with you, you win. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Ted.